Hello and welcome to another Every Tuesday tutorial. In this week's tutorial, we're going to be creating a winter watercolor floral bouquet all within Procreate. So what you see on screen is exactly what we're going to be creating together. I am using my paid set of watercolor brushes. You will need some kind of watercolor brushes in order to create a watercolor effect in Procreate. Procreate does offer some default water brushes if you want to try those ones first. They're located right here. I would suggest using the wash or the wet sponge for the parts that I'm going to be using my round paintbrush for illustration. You can kind of see the differences with what I do on screen and the default brushes. So just a heads up, it is a little bit different. This brush set is linked up right in the video description if you'd like to check it out and see what other brushes are included. So we're going to jump into Pinterest first and grab a reference photo that we can work off of. So I have a board called Flower Reference Photos. If you are looking for ideas and you don't want to search through Pinterest, I have a bunch right here. And I've got winter florals here as well as summer florals, all kinds of different floral bouquets. So the one that I'm going to be using is right here. So if you want to use it too, just come to this board. I'll leave a link in the video description to it, and then just scroll down until you find this image. And all you have to do is hit the three dots up here and choose download image, and that will save that image to your camera roll. So now when we go into Procreate, we can grab it and bring it into our document. So I'm going to go back into Procreate. I'm going to create a document that is 1500 pixels by 1500 pixels at 300 DPI. Okay, I've got my document all set to go. I'm going to go grab that photo that I just downloaded. So hit the wrench and choose add, insert a photo. All right, I've got my photo right here. I'm going to turn on my magnetics so I scale this proportionally. And that looks good to me. Okay, so next what you would want to do if you're not using this reference photo is build a color palette based on the photo. I've already done that for this photo. You can see I've got all my colors right here. This is totally free. There's a link to download this swatch. You can just install it in Procreate and be ready to go. I'll leave a link right in the video description to this. So we're going to start off by painting our base leaves. So I'm going to create a new layer right above my layer 1 reference image. And what I'm going to do is reduce the opacity a little bit. That way I can see what I am painting on. I'm going to start with all my background leaves and then work forward. So I'm going to grab my darkest color right here, my dark teal. It's the third one right here. And I've got my round paintbrush for illustration brush selected. Let's see how big this brush is. That's a pretty good size. I'm at about 30% for my size. So if I increase the opacity here just so we can kind of see the different colors, I've got 3 different blues right here, so I'm keeping that in mind where my dark, my medium, and my light blues are. So when I'm painting these in, I'm being intentional about which leaves I'm painting which color. My darkest ones will be like this leaf right here, and it's okay to paint on top of your foreground elements. I'm just roughing these in, and it's really, really loose here. So you don't want to worry too much. You're just getting a general shape in here because we're going to smudge things later on so it feels more like watercolor. So don't worry about it being really, really rough. Okay, I've got those ones in. If I turn off my reference photo, we can see what those leaves look like so far. So you can see they're really, really rough shapes. And I'm going to stay on the exact same layer right here. Let me reduce this opacity a little bit. And now I'm going to go for my medium leaves. So I've got my middle blue right here and just paint those ones in. Okay, let's see what that's looking like. All right, it's starting to really get filled out, and now I'm going to put in my light blue color. Okay, let's see what that looks like. That's looking good. Now I'm going to put in my stems down here with my different colors. All right, turn this off. That's all looking good. All right, so now I'm going to start adding in my little flowers in here, and I'm going to put in the stems first and then I'll put in the flowers. So I'm going to grab my light green color and just paint in these stems. All right, let's do a quick preview. And now we can start putting in all the little white flowers. And for these white flowers, I'm just going to do little splotches. This is really, really rough. You don't have to be super precise at all. This is perfect for beginners. If you've never done anything like this before or are just getting started, this is a perfect tutorial to follow and get familiar with the process. So I'm just putting in little different size dots, and this has pressure variation, this brush. So if I just tap really lightly, I can get a small dot. If I press down really hard, I can get a large one. So just pay attention as you're going along with how much pressure you want to put down. Okay, and then the last thing I want to do is put in my twine down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to draw in some simple lines. All right, we'll turn off our reference photo, and now we are all set to go. So I'm going to drop in a background color. I'm going to grab that darkest color that we had, and now we can really start seeing all of our little fine details because we've got that dark contrast. And this is looking really good. You could actually be done with your entire piece if you wanted. I noticed that this looks just a little bit crooked, so I'm going to straighten that up before I go too much further. So on my painting layer, I'm going to select it, undo my magnetics so then I can straighten this out. That looks a lot better. So with watercolor, especially when painting watercolor florals, you'll have areas that are wetter than other areas, and it'll make the color seem a little blurrier or a little fuzzier. So we want to start integrating that just to make this look a little bit more realistic. So we're going to duplicate our painted layer. So drag it to the left, choose duplicate. We're going to temporarily turn off the original layer. And on this brand new layer, we're just going to smudge some different areas to add that blurriness effect that will make it the entire piece look more realistic. So I'm going to grab my smudge tool and select my watercolor bleed brush from the watercolor lettering brush set. If you're using the default Procreate brushes, in the water category, make sure you've got water bleed selected. They're similar. This one's just a little more fine-tuned for this type of artwork. So what I'm focusing on is the areas that are more in the background, because anything that's in the forefront, we want a little more focused and sharper edges on those pieces. In the background leaves, we just want to leave a little blurrier, a little fuzzier to create that depth and that focus. So I've got my brush set at about 10%, and I'm just going to go along the edges and press, and you can see it's smudging them. I'm going to make this a little larger. I'm going to go up to 15%. And if I just press along the edges, you can see how it makes it a little blurry. At first, it may not look like much, but once you get going and finish the piece, you'll see the extra effort that you're putting right here, how it'll have on your whole piece. Okay, so once you have all of your foliage with these softer edges, now I'm going to come into these little bits of flowers, and I'm going to randomly start smudging some but not others, just so we can create extra depth within the flowers themselves. So just come in here and push a few of these around. Now that we have our smudge layer all set, we're going to grab our original layer that isn't smudged. Let me label this one smudged. We're going to grab our original layer. I'm going to rename this one original and place this one above our smudge layer and turn it on. And then I'm going to reduce the opacity down to about 50%. So that brings out some of the crisper edges, and we still get that nice smudge effect. And now we need to add a watercolor paper texture to everything that we've done. So you can grab any watercolor paper texture that you want. If you picked up this watercolor lettering Procreate brush set, I did include 4 different watercolor paper textures with it, so you'll already have those. So I'm going to go grab the medium tooth watercolor paper texture now and put it right above at the very top. Okay, I've got my paper texture. I'm just going to increase the size of it, make sure it covers my full canvas. And then I'm going to change the blend mode of this to linear burn. And when I do that, if I zoom in, you can see that texture everywhere here. Let me turn it on and off so you can see the difference that it makes. So it's pretty dramatic. All right, so finally we need some lettering on this just to complete everything. So down here, I'm just gonna write thinking of you. So I'm going to make sure that my lettering is beneath my watercolor paper texture because everything underneath this layer is going to have that texture to it. And I definitely want my lettering to have that texture. So I'm going to create a new layer right here. I'm gonna grab my darkest blue color, and this brush set comes with a round paintbrush for lettering. So I'm just gonna grab that brush and then write out my lettering. If you'd like to learn more about creating watercolor florals and watercolor lettering in Procreate, I actually have a full course on that. I'll leave a link in the video description to that. Also in the video description, everything mentioned in this video, including the Procreate watercolor lettering brush set, as well as the color palette and the reference photo that we used for this project. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you can be notified of new tutorials just like this one in the future. For more design and lettering tutorials and freebies, head on over to my site, every-tuesday.com. You can also find me over on Instagram. My handle is everytuesday. If you try this out and post it there, I would love it if you tag me. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.